Welcome to the Basics of Legislative Assembly. Since its founding in 1905, Washington State PTA has been a leading voice for the health, safety, well-being, and education of children and youth. As the largest grassroots advocacy association in the state, we look to you, the members, for our policy positions. For over 40 years, Washington State PTA has held Legislative Assembly to gather members for debate and adoption of our long and short-term advocacy positions. This presentation is meant to help delegates to Legislative Assembly understand the Washington State PTA Advocacy Program and what happens at Legislative Assembly. We are so excited to have you join us for the 41st Annual Washington State PTA Legislative Assembly, October 26th and 27th, 2019 at Bellevue College. Everything Washington State PTA does, including its advocacy program, is done with our mission and vision in mind. Our vision is to make every child's potential a reality, and we seek to accomplish this by being a powerful voice for all children, a relevant resource for families, schools, and communities, and a strong advocate for the well-being and education of every child. So how does Legislative Assembly fit into this mission? Every year in October, local PTAs and councils from all over the state send representatives, called delegates, to Legislative Assembly. During this two-day meeting, delegates learn about new policy positions that will be considered for adoption into Washington State PTA's advocacy program. We know that the needs of children may vary around our state, and Legislative Assembly allows our advocacy program to include the voices of members from all across Washington. That helps us better represent the 1.1 million students who attend schools statewide. But delegates to Legislative Assembly also benefit. They become well informed about our policy positions through education presentations given by the submitters of the positions. They also attend classes in how to be more effective advocates and hear from experts from other organizations through panel discussions. Equally important, delegates learn from each other through informal discussions and formal debates. We often hear from PTA leaders who attend Legislative Assembly because they feel obligated to send a representative, but afterwards had a completely changed view of what PTA can accomplish through effective advocacy. We hope that is true for you too. If this is your first time attending Legislative Assembly, you are probably full of questions. We hope to answer these questions and more during this presentation. Washington State PTA understands that some of the concerns we seek solutions for are broad systemic issues. Long-term legislative principles are permanent positions and recognize that sustained effort and attention will be required to get them addressed. The legislative principles consist of 5 overarching categories: budget, revenue, and funding, family and community engagement, public education policies, health and well-being of children and youth, and safe and nurturing environments for children and youth. The full list of legislative principles in each category can be found on our website. Legislative principles are permanent positions and can be added to or amended at Legislative Assembly. Resolutions are major positions taken by the association that generally have a call for action. These policy solutions can take the form of legislative changes at the state, county, or local level, or policy changes by other institutions, including school districts. Resolutions guide the advocacy work of Washington State PTA, local PTAs and councils to all levels of policymakers. Resolutions are permanent positions and can be adopted or amended at both convention and Legislative Assembly. Legislative issues are statewide positions adopted by delegates at Legislative Assembly to receive the focus of our advocacy efforts in Olympia. Legislative issues adopted in even-numbered years are ranked into a top 5 and remain on the short-term platform for 2 years, mirroring the 2-year legislative cycle in Olympia. In odd-numbered years, such as 2019, legislative issues can be added to the short-term platform, but issues are not re-ranked and are added to the also supported list. Each year, legislative principles, issues, and resolutions are considered by the voting delegates at Legislative Assembly. Where do they come from? They can be submitted by PTA members, local PTAs, councils, the Washington State PTA Advocacy Committee, or the Washington State PTA Resolutions Committee. Submissions are due by June 1. Occasionally, the Washington State PTA Board of Directors will take a board position, which is similar to a resolution on an emergent topic. Board positions must be adopted by members within 1 year. After a position has been submitted, how does it get to Legislative Assembly? A legislative issue is one that, in the opinion of the submitter, is a priority that needs to be addressed within the next 2 years. The submitted issue has a statement of the problem and why it needs to be addressed. The issue must satisfy general considerations. Does it match Washington State PTA's purposes and mission? Is it statewide in scope? Are the proposed solutions evidence-based with a track record of success in addressing the problem? At its summer meeting, the Washington State PTA Advocacy Committee vets and reviews all submitted legislative principles and issues based on the above considerations and others using a criteria checklist. The committee determines which legislative principles and issues are then forwarded to the Washington State PTA Board of Directors. The board then considers each position for advancement to Legislative Assembly based on validation of the review process and alignment to organizational strategies and mission. The board may also vote whether to make a recommendation to delegates on the adoption of a position. The board can attach recommendations to adopt, reject, or amend then adopt for each position. Using a similar process, resolutions are reviewed by the Washington State PTA Resolutions Committee and the Board of Directors. On the Washington State PTA website, the Legislative Assembly page is found under Events and Programs. There you will find all of the information you need about registration, hotels, voting delegates, schedule of events, class options, and more. If you have questions that can't be answered on the website, please email support@wastatepta.org to get your question answered. On the Washington State PTA website, you will find all the information you need to help you understand how to become a voting delegate. Scroll down until you see Registration and Cost, and then click on the drop-down for Voting Delegate Authorization. The process for identifying voting delegates is different than in past years. One president for each PTA in good standing will be sent an email containing a link to a survey form that must be used to identify authorized voting delegates. If you have co-presidents, the email was sent to the president that comes first alphabetically. The survey form linked to the email will contain spaces for the number of delegates your PTA is allowed according to Washington State PTA bylaws. If a president is a voting delegate, you must include them in the list of delegates on this survey form. Your list of delegates must be completed and submitted to the Washington State PTA office no later than midnight, October 20th. If a president does not turn in the names by this date, the attendees will not be eligible to be a voting delegate. A voting delegate will not be able to vote for both a local PTA and a council. Each individual is allowed to represent only one PTA. If the Washington State PTA office receives a duplicate name, we will let both the local PTA and the council know. This form can be completed before or after the member registers. Identifying a member as a delegate does not register the member to attend. A separate registration payment form must be completed. All voting delegates will have voting credentials available when they check in at the registration desk. We encourage students to attend Legislative Assembly and even have an education track specific for them this year. Students may absolutely be voting delegates, but they must be designated as voting delegates according to the same process mentioned earlier. And the best news of all, we have lowered the student registration to $45, including lunch both days, so please encourage student attendance. A reminder that submitters will need to make sure they are a voting delegate to be able to speak for their proposal at the microphone. Now that you have heard about the different kinds of Washington State PTA positions, how they get to Legislative Assembly, and how to become a voting delegate, it's time to find out more about how to become an informed voting delegate. Back on the Legislative Assembly page of the Washington State PTA website, you will find several resources to help you become an informed and prepared voting delegate. Before you come to Legislative Assembly, you have some homework. On the Legislative Assembly webpage, scroll down to where it says Voting Information. There you will find two important resources for all voting delegates. Start by downloading the 2019 Voters Guide. This important resource will give you the details of all the proposals being debated at Legislative Assembly. You will be able to read each proposed position, a persuasive statement from the submitter, as well as the Washington State PTA Board of Directors recommendation. This year, in addition to many new proposals, we also have many amendments of existing positions. Changes are shown as strike-through for deletions and as underlined bold font for additions. Note that when you vote at Legislative Assembly, only the parts in the shaded boxes are open for amendment and debate. Another resource on the Legislative Assembly webpage is a survey form that you can download and use with members of your local PTA or council to see what their opinions on the proposed positions are. At Legislative Assembly, you will hear more information about each proposal and debate on its merits. It is recommended to keep an open mind about proposals and obtain from your PTA an ability to vote your conscience based on what you learn at Legislative Assembly. You will also find the proposed standing rules on the website for your review prior to the event. At Legislative Assembly, there will be several opportunities to learn more about the proposed positions. Education sessions are your opportunity to hear directly from the issue, legislative principle, and resolution submitters. You will be educated on the topic or problem being addressed, how the proposal would improve the lives of children across Washington State, and why the proposal should be supported by Washington State PTA. These education sessions help voting delegates understand all proposals so they are fully able to participate in the voting process. This allows every voting delegate to hear the same information. Be sure to attend those sessions and write down any questions you may have. You will have a chance to ask those questions at separate small group settings called Q&A caucus sessions. Q&A caucus sessions serve two purposes. The Q&A opportunity allows delegates to ask questions of the submitters to make sure the proposal is understood. Q&A might be easy to understand, but what is caucusing? Caucusing allows delegates to work together on strategy, and there may be both a pro and con caucus. This time to strategize is a chance for those who have already decided their position, either for or against a position, to work with others of the same opinion. It allows the proponent and opposition statements and any proposed amendments to be discussed, well thought out, and written out in advance so they are concise, impactful, rational, and civil. Even if you do not have a question or an amendment you would like to propose, pick one or more to attend each session to hear the discussion and better understand the purpose for these small group caucusing sessions. It is also a chance for those who are undecided on a position to hear pro and con arguments to facilitate a decision. The education and Q&A caucus sessions lead to understanding of the facts and intent of the positions. Attending these sessions helps you become an informed voting delegate so you can actively participate in the debate and voting. Sometimes, after reading the voter's guide, listening to the education, and attending the Q&A caucus session, a delegate wishes to suggest a change to the position. They would do this by introducing a motion in general session during the debate time for that specific position. Plan ahead and be prepared with your motion ahead of time so that the time allowed for debate can be used effectively and you can be ready to move when the time is right. Reminder that only the parts of positions that are in the shaded boxes are open for amendment and debate. Use the time in caucusing to work with the issue submitters and other delegates to coordinate and prepare any amendments to positions as well as motions to extend debate if you feel it may be needed. Your motion forms should be clear, easy to read, and ready to present at the appropriate time. There will also be amendment writing labs on both Saturday and Sunday where you can get advice and assistance writing your motions. Motion forms such as this one will be available in the caucus rooms and in the general session room at all microphone tables. When making a motion to amend a position, the exact changes you wish to make need to be pre-written before you will be recognized at the microphone to present your motion. You can ask to strike words or insert words, and your motion needs to specify where these inserted words would go. Other kinds of motions can also be made, such as a motion to extend debate by a specific number of minutes or to close debate. Each proposed position will be open for debate for 10 minutes before it is voted on. Please note that only voting delegates, including student voting delegates, have the right to voice and vote. Voting delegates will have different badges than other attendees. When the debate is opened for a position, those voting delegates who wish to speak in favor of the position should quickly line up at microphone 1, the for microphone. Those who wish to speak against the position should quickly line up at microphone 2, the against microphone. Debate begins with an opening statement at microphone 1 by a proponent of the position. A statement against the position at microphone 2 would be heard next before proceeding to motions. Speaking for or against does not require a written motion. Motions are made from microphone 1. Motion forms must be completely filled out in advance and will be available at all microphone tables as well as the Q&A caucus rooms. Here are some examples of possible motions. Amendments to position under consideration. Voting delegates can motion to insert words, strike words, or change a whole section. All motions must indicate where the changes will occur. Motion to extend debate. 10 minutes can go fast and sometimes more time is needed. Motions to extend debate must be for a set amount of time, for example, 2 minutes. Motions to close debate. Sometimes the debate is no longer bringing up new points and a motion is made to close debate so we can proceed to the vote. Motions to extend or close debate need to be seconded and must be approved by 2/3 of the voting delegates. Microphone 3 is the information mic. This is where you would ask a question, point of order, or go if you need clarification on something. If you can't follow the proceedings due to the environment, the room is too loud, too cold, too warm, etc., you can go to microphone 3 and request a point of privilege. At this microphone, there is no debate or two-way conversation about the answer. You simply ask your question or point of privilege and then sit down while the chair responds. Anyone sitting at any of the microphone tables can assist you with any questions you might have about the process or can direct you to the correct microphone. After each proposed legislative principle, issue, or resolution is introduced, debate begins when the chair recognizes the first speaker at microphone 1. Debate is where the voting delegates put out the pros and cons of a proposal. We begin with the proponent, who will be allowed 2 minutes to speak in favor of the legislative principle, issue, or resolution. If there is a speaker in opposition, the speaker will be given 2 minutes to speak against the proposal before any amendments are processed. The chair will alternate recognizing speakers at the for and against microphones. If no one has approached the against microphone and no voting delegate wants to make a motion, the vote on the proposed legislative principle, issue, or resolution will be taken without further debate. Each speaker waits until they are recognized by the chair, then states their name and local PTA or council name and number printed on their voting credential. They have up to 2 minutes to speak. Timekeepers at the front of the room hold up cards to help speakers keep track of time. Please stop speaking when the 2 minutes is up. No voting delegate shall speak for more than 2 minutes at a time or more than twice on the pending item of business. As a voting delegate, please don't hesitate to get up and say something. If no one else does, who will? If there is a motion and it is correctly filed on a motion form, the attendant at microphone 1 will alert the chair. Motions take precedence and the motion maker will get to speak next. Motions need to be seconded to be discussed. Debate and voting occurs on the motion before debate resumes on the whole position under consideration. When time runs out, all debate is over for that position, and please note that this includes amendments. When the chair calls for the vote, voting delegates hold up their voting credentials. If the chair is in doubt of the result of the vote, they may call for a counted floor count, and you will be given further instructions at that time. Total debate time for each proposed legislative principle, issue, or resolution will be 10 minutes, and then the vote will be taken. The total time clock will stop for all matters and replies at the information microphone, and the total time clock may also be stopped by the chair as needed. Legislative Assembly is a wonderful opportunity to discover what makes PTA such an effective advocacy organization, the passion of its members. There are many positions to consider and things move fast. If this is your first Legislative Assembly, please don't be afraid to ask questions of the Washington State PTA Board or Advocacy Committee members. They are here to help you. Also, take advantage of the classes and the opportunity to talk with other advocates in your area or who share your interests. Networking is a great way to learn strategies from others. Legislative Assembly is one of those opportunities where you really get as much out of it as you put into it. Many attendees comment that by going through this process, they come to recognize that PTA is much more than fundraisers. Legislative Assembly is how we truly engage in our mission of being a strong advocate for the well-being and education of every child. Come along, it's a fun ride. Thank you, and we hope you enjoyed this year's Washington State PTA Legislative Assembly.